Hello friends, my name is Ajay Rikhiram. I am the third generation down the line in making musical instruments of India. We are very blessed and fortunate to make musical instruments for all the professionals around the world for 8 decades. We have innovated, we have customized the instruments for famous musicians like Pandit Ravi Shankar, Ustad Vilayat Khan Saab, George Harrison, Mick Taylor, and many more. Today's subject is sitar. Sitar, when you see at sitar, it looks very complicated with so many strings. But once you come to know about the whole concept of the sitar, then it's a very, it's easy. It's not very. It looks very complicated, but it's an easy instrument. You don't have to, feel very complicated about it. The sitar is a hollow body instrument. Even the neck is hollow. This is the acoustic box. It has 5 pieces, 4 pieces are wooden, and this round acoustic box is a gourd or a pumpkin, or we call it tumba. These 5 pieces are put together: the top, the neck joint, the neck, the fretboard, and the acoustic box put together in a very solid manner. Means the joints are very well done and glued very nicely and crafted very nicely to have the stability of the body, so that the tuning problem is not there and the tuning stays. Of course, when we are making the sitar, we have to keep in mind the thickness of the wood. We have to keep according to the tonality of the sitars required by different musicians. Like we have 3 different styles which are popularly played all around the world. A. Ustad Vilayat Khan style sitar. B. Ravi Shankar style sitar. C. Pandit Nikhil Banerjee style sitar. So these 3 styles, when I'm talking about the styles of sitar, basically first of all you have to understand this, that the instrumentalist, what instrumentalist is looking for, why an instrumentalist is considered to be the best. He is considered to be the best when he exactly imitates the vocal rendition of compositions on the instrument. He is considered the best. So we talk that manner. It's like it's much easier to understand that way. I'm going to be very simple, not very complicated as the sitar looks. Let's talk about Vilayat Khan style sitar, the first I mentioned. This sitar has 6 main strings. Actually, the Vilayat Khan style, his forefathers has been developing, making a lot of changes, modifications on the sitar body, adding more strings, reducing the strings, because according to the the vocal style they had to follow. Like the Dhrupad style, in his style of playing, the Dhrupad style of vocal rendition is done on the instrument called Surbahar. Surbahar, which is tuned low to G sharp or A. That's the tuning. It's an open tuning. And the Khayal way of rendition, the Khayal vocals rendition of compositions on the instrument is done on the sitar. So the sitar was developed in that manner to play, to be able to allow the player to play the compositions of khayal vocal. Here what he had done is he had put 6 main strings, 2 strings, the first 2 strings are fretted, and the rest 4 strings are open chords. The third string, when we talk about tuning, the first string is tuned to G, D, F sharp, A, D and D. I am giving these notes because I am considering D as the key. If you tune to C sharp, then you just go one step down. For F sharp, like if you listen to this chord, it's like a D major chord. But if a musician wants to play a minor scale, all he has to do is just tune down F sharp to F. That's what you have to do. If you are doing the major scale, so this gives the feel of the scale, the open chords, and then you play the compositions on the first two strings, you fret the first two strings. And the sympathetic strings, the role of sympathetic strings is to give harmonics of the next octave. Here the set of sympathetic strings has 11 to 12 strings, sometimes the musicians, they want 11 strings, sometimes they want 12 strings. That depends upon the musician to musician, the sitarist, what options he wants. This style, when we are making this style, we have to keep in mind the tonal, the tone and the sound, this style of musicians, the musicians who are following the Vilayat Khan style sitar, what exactly they are looking for. So we have standardized. It's kind of, I would say my respected father, he had a great contribution towards this standardization of the sitars, like Vilayat Khan style sitar or the Ravi Shankar style sitar or the Nikhil Banerjee style sitar, in terms of the measurement, the sizing of it, the length, width of the board, the top, the way it has to be hollowed, how much should be the gauge of the top, what kind of gourd has to be used to get that same tone of that particular style. In Vilayat Khan style, the measurements of the sitar, for example, the width of the top is ranging from 13 inches to 13 and a half inches. The total length is varying from 47 inches to 48 inches. And the setting of the bridge, this is very important. The setting of the bridge and how the frets has to be curved to allow the player to play flawlessly with the pulls, with the speed of going up and down the scale. It has to be flawless, so it has to be very smooth. So it's very important to have the right action of the string from the fret, the right height of the bridge, the curvature of the each fret is different. This is our signature customized way of doing the sitar to play very smoothly, and less energy is required, and you can play number of hours. The playing, your hands will not get tired very easily. So these things we keep in mind while constructing the sitar. And here you can see, before there were no bridges like these small bridges here. These are our innovations, the individual bridges for all the sympathetics to have the equal amount of the tonality, not varying tonality from up and down when you're going from different octaves to the higher octave to lower octave to the higher octave, and you're switching the octaves, the tonality remains the same. Here when we say the khayal gaiki or the khayal vocals are kind of followed in this style. So the player, we have to make the instrument in such a manner to allow the players to have the longer sustain while pulling this first string. Longer sustain means with one pluck you can go number of notes just with one pluck. So this is the major requirement from the musicians of this kind of style who follow this kind of style. The thickness of the soundboard is also kept a little thicker, in terms of we have to, study the grains, study the grains of the wood, and then we determine then we decide, then we make a decision that how much should be the gauge to have the, to get that particular tone we want. Let's talk about the Pandit Ravi Shankar style sitar over here. When you see the body of the sitar, and let's compare also, so that it will make much easier for you to understand about both the styles and what are the differences. Here, when I was talking about the width of the top, which I said 13 to 13 and a half inches. Here it is 13 and a half to 14 inches. That varies. The size of the acoustic box is much bigger compared to the Vilayat Khan style sitar. Why? Because here the string arrangement is different. There is extra lower octave strings being installed here to be able to play the low registered notes. In fact, I should tell you first that the Ravi Shankar style sitar, the musicians are following the Dhrupad style of vocals. They try to play the Dhrupad style, so where the low register notes are very prominent. So it was necessary to have the extra bass octave. That is the reason the sitar body size is made bigger, to give that bassy tone. When I explained about the Vilayat Khan family who used to play the Dhrupad style of vocal rendition on Surbaha and the Khayal vocal rendition of compositions on Sitar, Pandit Ravi Shankar thought of getting a sitar where both the styles, both means the Dhrupad style and the Khayal style, put together in one body. So he decided to put the bass strings and get the tone by making the size little bigger compared to the Vilayat Khan style sitar. And the length, here I said it was 47 to 48. Here it is 48 to 49. Because the tone changes, the tone has to change. The tone has to change according to the style of playing of this particular vocal following, the vocal imitation of that Dhrupad vocals, and also the Khayal. So the main string, here the main string is, it is kept a little bit more closed, I would say more, it's more closed and it's more brighter here. It's more closed here and it's more brighter here. More closed, why? Because it's more sustained sound is required. Here the plucking technique is more important in this style. So that's why the main string is kept more bright to have that cut, the attack of the strings, and to have that, to allow the players to give that attack on the main string. And at the same time have the bass frequencies. So here you can play 3 octaves. A player can play here 4 octaves. So you have to, improvise within the range when you're playing the Vilayat Khan style. This is very important. The person who is following, a musician who is following the Vilayat Khan style sitar, if we ask that gentleman to play the Ravi Shankar style sitar, he will be able to play, but not to that mark. The person who is following the Ravi Shankar style sitar will not be able to play or perform in the manner of the same style. It's the tone is so prominent. Immediately you can tell, a listener can tell that this is the Vilayat Khan style sitar or this is the Ravi Shankar style sitar. Now you see, you must be noticing, this has very less wood carving and less inlay work. Here it is more elaborate, the wood carvings and the inlay work. It is for purpose. Here you want more sustain. you want more close sound, so you don't want any obstruction with the vibration of the body, and the obstruction from the wood carvings and the inlay work. So it's kept very simple to get that right tone. Here it is more elaborate to have that kind of tone. To, for example, you see these leaves over here which is carved. Now the tension of the strings, because the main strings are 7 here and 13 sympathetic strings, compared to 6 strings and 11 to 12 sympathetic strings. Here the number of strings are more, and you have the bass strings also. The bass strings has more tension. The more tension when you're pulling the strings on the bass strings, it creates more tension on the body. So enforcements has to be given to the body. So these are kind of enforcements given to the joint, so that the stability of tuning is there. And of course the wood carving over here and the inlay work symbolizes this particular style. You see these birds over here, these birds symbolizes the cuckoo bird sound. It's like the frequencies of the birds creeping, in the wild. The same sounds has been, imitated and put into, these are the kind of tones we look in for while making the sitars. The small bells, the bells in the temple, the smaller bells, the bigger bells. So that kind of frequencies we are keeping in mind while making the instrument. Here the bridge work is very different from the Vilayat Khan style. Here the as I have already explained, that the main string is more brighter, so we have to make it a little bit different to that of Vilayat Khan style sitars. And the sympathetics also, the sympathetics is not very open here, it's very open here, and not very open, I mean the medium opens, to have a very sweet sound, it has to be sweet. Here it's a different tone. It's a totally different tone. Now the width of the neck, because the bass string is there, even the width of the neck is kept a little bit wider to allow you to play on different strings. Like we have 4 strings here to fret. Here it was 2 strings. And the rest of the 3 strings are open chord. The tuning goes like this. It's G, D, low A, low D, A, D and D. So these Ds are octave apart. Like this is D3, this is D2, this is D4 and D5. And then the sympathetics. That sympathetics you have to tune according to the scale you want to play, whether it is minor, major, pentatonic or diatonic, depends, So you tune the sympathetics accordingly. Nikhil Banerjee style sitar. Let's talk about this style. This style is very similar to the Pandit Ravi Shankar style sitar, but the idea of Nikhil Banerjee was to amalgamate the string arrangement of Vilayat Khan style sitar and the Ravi Shankar style sitar, because he follows the Mayer Gharana style, same as Pandit Ravi Shankar style sitar. The Mayer Gharana is now popularly known as Pandit Ravi Shankar style, but Nikhilji also belongs to the same Mayer Gharana, where the Drupad style of vocal is followed on the sitar, and also the khayal. As I explained you, the sitar is built to have the bass frequencies, the mid frequencies and the high frequencies, have 4 octaves to play and to improvise on that same range. This is a vast range, so he has the same style, but he added one extra string to the sitar of Pandit Ravi Shankar style, the I don't have the sitar ready right now, but I can show you. Like, it has 8 main strings. Here we have 7 main strings. So similar open chords. He wanted the same open chords of Vilatha style sitar on this sitar. So we added one more peg here and tune the same open chords as the Vilatha. When you strum the open chords, you get that feel of the Vilatha, but you have the 4 main playing strings to fret. So this is the basic difference between the Ravi Shankar and the Nikhil Banerjee style. Of course, the tone is very different because Nikhil Banerjee had his own signature tone, which he created, by imagining the tone he wanted. It was right amalgamation of the Vilatha and the Ravi Shankar style with the bass notes, and the main string was very close to the not very bright tone, it was more close tone. The sympathetics were open like the Ravi Shankar style, and the main string was closed, so it had a very different feel to it. So and let's talk about this extra gourd over here. Why this extra gourd over here on the other end, a smaller gourd compared to the main gourd, the acoustic box over here? As I have already told you, the neck is hollow, and this is attached to the neck. Mainly the bass strings, the bass notes are played mainly on the first 7 frets, or the last string, which is the last lower string, which is played on the 4 frets. So basically you are pulling and playing these frets over here on the bass string. For the role of the second gourd is to give the natural delay effect on the bass string. That is the main purpose of the second gourd over there. If Vilatha style sitar, you see there is no gourd because the bass strings are not there, it is not required. So this is why the second gourd is over here. And now you see the modifications we did. My father, the main contributor to give very purposeful and very useful modifications to the sitar. As you see, I've already shown you these individual bridges for the sympathetics here, and then he made this anchor piece over here, the end anchor piece where all the strings are strung. This he changed it to metal one. Before it was done from staghorn or wooden piece, which was not very durable. That used to break, and suddenly while performing and suddenly something breaks from there, the whole strings will just jumble up. So that's the reason he started using the metal piece, which is much stronger and holds the strings very well. Secondly, here the nut piece. The nut piece before used to be cut through the it was made either from the bone was used, or the staghorn was used. Kind of a plate was dug into the fretboard, so we had to saw the fretboard to fix those nuts, which I did not like, because once you cut the board from here, the grains are cut, the strength of the fretboard, you lose the strength of the fretboard by cutting it from here. So I didn't like it, it used to always come off, and lot of problems were there, with complaints from musicians while playing. There was different kind of noises, tack, very irritating sounds used to come. So I decided to make this piece from polyacetyl material, and it's a one piece, and it is just screwed onto the fretboard. The fretboard is not cut, so you have the vibration from here also, and the grains are running straight, so it's good vibration from the nut as well, so which enhances the sound quality, the vibration quality, the tonal quality is improved. So these are the modifications we have done. The setting of the bridge, how thick should be the bridge, what wood has to be used, what material of be used at what points, and which the points where the sound is important, the vibration is important. We should avoid using those materials, and the study of the grains of the wood to get that particular tone is by studying the grains and the thickness of the top. The neck joints are done perfectly, glued perfectly, so that the tuning stability is there. It holds the tension of the string, because each string has like 30 kilos, 40 kilos of tension. So it's like 20 strings, 18 to 20 strings on the instrument, on the body. So it's immense load on the instrument. So we have to take care of that also. When we talk about the material, there are two choices for the wood. Either you use cedar wood or you use the teak wood. These are the two mainly used wood, and we naturally season the wood. We prefer to naturally season the wood before making the sitar. So we naturally season the wood to about 8 to 10 years or 5 to 6 years, depending upon the wood, how it behaves over the years. So this is the main criteria while choosing the wood. And the gourd, the gauge of the gourd, we have to choose. If we have like 100 pieces or 200 pieces of gourds lying in a workshop, so probably we will use about 50 to 60 at the max, and others will be used only for repair work, or we don't use it at all actually. So we use those gourds mainly for making other kind of musical instruments, not the sitars, where the load of strings are more. Where less load of strings are there in other instruments, there we use the other gourds. So these are the materials we have to keep in mind while choosing the material. This is what we keep in mind, that over the years, the 3 generation of expertise is gone into making crafting the instrument. So my grandfather passed on his experience to my father. My father's experience is passed on to me, and then further we put in our inputs to add on our experimental work and expertise to enhance the quality of the sound and the tone of the instrument. And the development never ends. It keeps on going. So we are still working, and we have to improve. There is always room for improving. So we are still going strong, and my son is also involved now. He's learning sitar. The first thing you should know is that you have to play the instrument. When you play the instrument, then you feel where the difficulties are, where you are missing the tone, where you are missing the sound. So the understanding is easy when you are playing the instrument, and it becomes easy for you to achieve your goals and make the decisions of the material, how the body structure has to be. So these decisions, it helps to make all those decisions.